Okay, so welcome to the meetup with me, Phil Roberts, also known as Brew Shack Barbecue, on the website, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm joined today by Craig Osborne, also known as Oz, Aussie London, isn't it, on Instagram?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We'll have all your tags and whatnot at the bottom, so you can follow Oz after this. And I've got Craig on today to talk about meat. Specifically, hence the name of the show, which might stick, to be honest, on other episodes. But we're going to talk about meat, a lot of opinion. But you've worked in meat on and off for quite a while, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I started off working for a dry stores company, looking after a lot of the top restaurants in London. Dry stores, flour, grains, tin stuff, everything that you can think of that goes in the dry store. Did that for just over 6 years. The story goes that I was moving to America. I was with a girl at the time from Oregon, and it was all set to go and live over there, but it didn't work out. My friend was working for this company called Woods Food Service, they're still going now. And they were looking for someone at the time, offered me the job sort of temporary. I'm a big lover of food, but I'd never worked in it before, customer service, sales background. So that was that. But ended up staying there for six and a half years. Left there to go and work for a butcher in London called Nigel Fredericks, and I stayed there for 7 years. So predominantly they were supplying the top restaurants, contract caterers, those sort of places. I mean, we supply Wembley, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, Twickenham. I know you're a big rugby fan, Phil, so that would be a nice one for you. Businesses like Google, all the banks in Canary Wharf, and then some of the top restaurants like the Wolseley, the Lawney, sort of the high street restaurants you'd hear, Bill's, Coates. So yeah, did meat for 7 years and loved it. Really good.
And we met through, which probably sounds a bit weird, we met through meat, didn't we, in a way?
We did indeed.
So I mean,
how many years ago was it now?
It's 2013, so it's getting on now, mate.
7 years.
Getting on.
What a day that was.
It was me, you, and JB from JLS.
Yeah. We actually got invited to join JLS, but we couldn't because we were both too busy with meat, obviously. So,
yeah. I was. I think I was a watch repairer at the time. I've had a strange old career where I've gone from quite a few different things, and I think I was working in watches back then. But I probably would have picked JLS on reflection.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So we met, well, basically to fill in the blanks, at Battle of the Burgers, didn't we? Which I found out about. I don't know about you. I found out about that via Saturday Kitchen.
I think so. A little bit of a caveat here, and quite an anecdotal story. It was run by Eblex, which at the time was the English beef and lamb executive, and our master butchers did a lot of work for Eblex for demonstrations. We did all the cuts for their photography for their booklets that they come out. And I'd done a couple of burger competitions before, and I saw this one. I thought, I have a bash, love a competition. Burgers are my passion. I've got a lot of views on them. So I entered, got through to the finals, walked in on the final day. It was at a demonstration kitchen in London. I can't remember exactly where it was.
Was that college, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Regent's College. I think it might have been.
Yeah. I was walking. Funnily enough, it was the first time I'd been to London on my own. But I remember sort of thinking it's pretty cool. We've been building up to it for a couple of months, wasn't it? The different heats, and you had to resubmit your recipes and all that.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take my mum. And my mum's not like London savvy. At the time I wasn't. I am now because I've worked down there quite a lot. But we ended up, she's not very good in confined spaces. I thought, we'll just get a taxi or we'll walk. I thought, well, it's not that far as the crow flies. We were walking for ages trying to find it. I honestly thought I wasn't going to get there.
Yeah, no, it can eat you up, London, if you don't know it. But I remember walking through the door, and my main contact for the butchers with Eblex at the time was a woman called Diane Spencer Walker. Really, really lovely lady. I'd speak to her 2 times a week. But I hadn't mentioned I'd through to the final. I thought she'd knew. So I walked in the door, and she's gone, "Oh, hi, Craig. What are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, I'm in the finals. I've got the Jagerbomb burger." She went, "No, you can't be here." I was like, "What do you mean I can't be here? I haven't entered as Nigel Fredericks. I'm not even using Nigel Fredericks' meat."
Mm.
And she went, "No, you're from the industry. You can't be part of this." And I was like, "Well, you can't tell me I'm not now." And she said, "Well, look, you're not going to win." So that started the day off a bit on a back foot. But no, we had a good day. I cooked a Jaeger bomb burger, which I'd done before at a previous competition. It sounds a bit ominous. It was just as Jaeger bombs were becoming really popular, and it was the Jägermeister element of it was I made like a Jägermeister sauce, used Red Bull in the onions, made my own potato roll. It was good fun burger. It looked nice, tasted nice. I mean, you had one of them, didn't you? So
Yeah, mine was I called mine the Bengal burger, and it was
Bengal burger.
yeah, that was it. I really struggled to come up with names, but I just thought, I was reading a lot of comics at the time. I thought a bit of Stanley double initials. Let's go for that bit of alliteration. And it was mine was spiced lamb, like tandoori spiced lamb with poppadom, and for some reason I chose to make it on a ciabatta. I could have probably made it work with a naan of some description or a garlic flavored bread, but I think I'd tried so many different breads and I felt like it really stood up to it quite well. And I tell you what, the funny story for mine is the recipe looked and sounded way better than it was turning out in practice. I literally threw away more ideas than I took to that place. Honestly, they were shite. And up until the day I was like, right, I need to just concentrate and just get the presentation right. And that was the only one that I'd made in the run up to it where I was actually truly happy with. I recreated it recently, didn't I? I made it look a little
no, fantastic.
And that I was way happy with that. I was thought, well, if I did it again, I probably would have been a better chance. But we'll get it, elephant in the room. We'll get it out of the way. We both got fucking cheated out of it anyway.
So bad, so bad. So for those of you listening, neither of us won. I come second. I think Phil come fourth, I believe, after Onion Man. But the lady who won it, she ticked all the boxes on a PR scale. She was a single mum of 4. And she didn't actually make a burger. She brought some sliced beef, some mashed potato, some vegetables, and she put it between 2 Yorkshire puddings.
Played Jenga with a Sunday lunch.
It's a Sunday lunch sandwich at best. It's not a burger. It's not a burger, and it was, I don't know. I felt cheated, and it was a $2,000 or $5,000 prize, wasn't it?
$2,000 prize, and the runner-up got the. Although I will say that Ginger Pig book is very good. It's very.
I've got it.
Yeah,
it's over there.
Yeah, and it covers a lot of the stuff, or some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, actually.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a really good book. Very good butchers as well. Very good butchers.
I look back on it quite fondly now, but I was pissed off when that happened.
Yeah, no, me too.
There was something missing from your burger. That's the feedback was. It was like it was there. It was good. It was really good. I think it was just a little bit of seasoning. You lost a little bit of the lamb because you'd put too much spice in it, or something to that effect. And then I'm like, well, there's burgers missing from her burger.
Well, look, little do you know, so one of the judges was a burger lodder called the Burger Addict, and he is now actually a part of Bleecker Burger. I don't know if you've heard of Bleecker Burger, but they're a burger chain. I say a chain, they've got 2 or 3 restaurants now. I can't remember her second name, but Zan, I think her name is, who runs it. She's from New York. That's where the Bleecker comes from Bleecker Street. And it's an absolutely phenomenal burger. And it's a really simple, they do the Bleecker burger, which is just a standard burger. They do a Bleecker Black, which contains black pudding.
Oh, wow.
But I could rant on about burgers for a long time. There's a lot of people out there building these burgers that are like that big. Yeah. And you can't get them in the mouth. For me, the reason the burgers work so well is because you can get all the different flavours, all the different tastes in every mouthful. And it's all good and well building a burger for Instagram. Great, you get some likes, and you've got 4 burgers, bacon, lamb chop in there, Ford Cortina, but you're not going to eat it. For me, I don't like the word best, because best is
Finite, isn't it?
it is, it really is. Favourite is a more humble word. But for me, if you ask me what my favourite burger was or is, it's a simple one. It's good quality beef, good quality bun. Meat to bun ratio's got to be, good. There's no point in getting a burger and you eat it and it just falls to pieces. And simple's best. You see some of these burgers out there now, and there was a recent burger with Jack Whitehall was doing it with I think Barbecue Magazine. And Rupert Bates, who's one of the editors of Barbecue Magazine, I know him from my current job. He works in the property industry as well. He asked me to enter, and I said no. I said it's just going to be one of those burgers. It was about that big, 560 ingredients. You'd have to cut it to eat it, and that's exactly what won. For me personally, you can't beat a cheeseburger. Beef, cheese, bun, onion, sauce.
Unless you're going for like big and sexy Instagram likes, because it's and don't get me wrong, I love, I'll share and make them as much as anyone else. I love it. But if I've got, not right now, but if I've got 15 people around in the house, they're in the garden, I'm chucking cheeseburgers out. It's 2 patty max. It's got a piece of cheese, usually plastic cheese. I just think it works.
Yeah, American cheese, brilliant.
Patty, condiment out. I don't even put salad on it because I always find that just the structural integrity of it kind of gets a bit flappy.
No, I completely agree. It's like I said, you've got to do what's right for you and what makes you happy. But there's places out there at the moment that are doing 2 8-ounce or 227 grams burgers. Now, if you go to a steak restaurant and you have a nice lump of steak, you're paying, if you're going for a 500-gram steak, you're going to be paying upwards of 30, 40 quid, and that's a big piece of meat.
Yeah.
If you're then having 2 of those, 200 grams of pancetta or bacon, 2 free slices of cheese, pickles, and then a load of bread, it's too much food. It's far too much food.
And half of the fun is the sides. Like I love a batch of skin on fries or things like that. It's all part of that experience. Overloading on how many times I've ordered a burger and ended up halfway through it and gone, Jesus, I don't think I'm going to get to the next bit. And to be honest, I eat weird, because what I'll tend to do is get some of the veg and the other stuff out of the way and then attack the protein. I don't do it deliberately. Everyone always pulls me up on it. They go, you've eaten all your chips. It's like, yeah, it's just how I do it. But then I'll do that, then look at the burger, and it almost looks like an insurmountable, it's something I can't manage. And the best one I've had recently from like a chain or anything like that was from Dirty Bones.
Yeah.
And that was the I can't remember what it was called to my mind now, but it was macaroni and pulled pork on. Ooh. And it was literally, it wasn't overloaded. It was just a nice little topping of pulled pork, a nice sort of little spoonful of mac and cheese, and 2 decent patties. I'm good with that. And that wasn't cheap either, I recall, like that meal. But I felt like I got better value for it, because I've come out of it feeling, full but not there. So I'm with you 100%.
So burger-wise for me at the moment, my favourite burger in London, and if you could add a little link to this, it'd be brilliant. Black Bear Burger, Lizzie and Stu. They've got a really cool story. So Stu worked at Canary Wharf. I think he was an investment banker. Lizzie was a maternity nurse. I think that's the right word. She's a nurse, maternity nurse. She worked with in maternity wards.
Babies and that.
Babies and that. She's pregnant at the moment as well. So good. If you listen to this, Lizzie, good luck with that. I think she's been pregnant for about 3.5 years now, I think she'd say. So she's due very soon. They started up at Brockwell. Is it Brockwell Market? One of the street markets in London. And serving these burgers, and they were fantastic. And I've been a fan of eating their burger, and they actually contacted me at the butcher's because it was a time. I don't know if you had the same problems up where you are, but the Westminster City Council said no more burgers that are medium rare. They have to be cooked through. And there was a lot of burger chains at the time: Bleecker Burger, Meat Liquor, Goodman's, who were a steak restaurant, Hawksmoor, and they were known for their medium rare burgers. Now these guys were all using prime cuts. A lot of them were mincing them in house, and then so it was just the same as serving a rare burger. But they put these blockers on, and the butchers, Nigel Fredericks, were one of the only butchers that were allowed to serve burgers. We had an accreditation where you would make the patties, but then they were able to serve them medium rare. So we had a lot of business come in from that, and that's when I met Stu and Lizzie. Got talking about their burger and all the cuts, and I was really, as much as I was a professional, that was my 9 to 5. I was also a big fanboy as well. So working with these restaurants and these chefs, it was an honour. Yeah. And getting involved, and they went from the street food markets to Box Park, which, if you don't know, they are like an indoor food market, little shops. They had a very small unit down in Shoreditch, and recently they've just opened their first bricks and mortar place, the Holy Grail of opening a restaurant in Brixton. They're doing really, really well. You'd like them as well, Phil, because Stu's a big barbecue fan, and probably a controversial thing to say here, but for me, he makes the best brisket I've eaten outside of the US. It's absolutely phenomenal. Wow. So if you guys don't follow them already, follow Black Bear Burger. They are absolutely fantastic, and they are.
I'll put a link on this in the description of the video. And to be fair, it'd be good to have them on, if I'm honest.
No, they're really great people. I'm sure they will.
Yeah, no, that's wicked. But I think in terms of, I think we could do a show about burgers, and we probably
will.
Yeah, we should do that. Yeah. But just moving on, I think. So we've had a bit about your background, and we've had a little bit of a rant about how we both got cheated. But I think what a lot of people don't know is actually I've got quite an affinity for butchery as an art, and that's because my granddad, butchery basically saved his life. When my nan, I never met my nan, but when she died, he was given a new purpose, because he'd already retired. He was kind of not really doing a lot, and his friend Jackson's Butchers, they've moved now. His son runs it, and it's in Shifnal, in Shropshire. So shout out to those guys. But Jackson's gave him a new lease of life, and I did some runs, and he was mainly a sort of a runner. He'd sort of carry stuff out or drive things to places and orders and fulfill that kind of thing. But the industry gave him, potentially another 20 years with us. And, I've always felt really close to it because of that. It gave our family a bit of a breath of fresh air. And, my brother did his work experience in that shop as well, and which I'm gutted that I didn't know on reflection. But back then I wasn't as interested in food. I was interested in rollerblading, and that was about it, actually. So, and then eventually rugby. So it was just one of those things I never got into. But yeah, it's I've got a real sort of outside passion for it, where you've got the sort of inside knowledge which has grown into that passion as well. So I think there's a few questions that would help a few people out, because I think it can be a bit of a minefield when you walk in, especially in British butchers now. You can walk into a butcher and you can, you'll see the very standard stuff. You'll see probably a small rolled brisket, a couple of chickens, you've got your rump, your sirloin, your ribeye, and you kind of, if you don't know what to ask for, you might not get what you're actually after. So question, just from your perspective, what's the best sort of value you can get from a cut? Like, say if you're early on in barbecue, the budget is kind of a little bit more challenging. What would you say the best cuts are to aim for someone who's trying to get the best value?
Can you indulge me a second, just before we talk about that?
Yeah.
Just about the different type of butchers that are out there.
Okay.
I think for me, and this is one of the things that really opened my eyes up when I first started in the meat industry. I'm a bit of a know-it-all. passionate about food, and I thought, I know enough about meat to do this. And it's not until you start in the industry that you realise how much you don't know. My dear colleague, friend, a guy called Maurice Stevenson, who is on social medias at Urban Meat Man. He's not as prolific on there anymore. He used to be captain of the Great British Butchery team, and competed in the Tri Nations butchery competition. Anyway, and again, that's probably another episode. But he taught me a lot, there really are sort of 3 or 4 places you can grab your meat now. You can grab your meat. Sorry, there you go. There's the first one of the day.
Oi, oi.
Oi, oi. So the supermarket is going to be primarily where the majority of us are buying their produce, and that's not just meat. That's fresh fruit and veg. But for me, it's a numbers game. They want to get that meat. I mean, the word slaughtered, it's not always the nicest word, so I'll say harvested. So they'll harvest that meat, and then as quickly as they possibly can, they'll package it, and it's on the shelf. It's all about volume. It's all about turnover, and the provenance and the husbandry that goes in with that is probably less than your normal high street butcher. And those high street butchers, where the meat will be better generally than the supermarkets, but at the same time, a lot of those guys are what you'd call backpack butchers. So they'll be going to Smithfield or going to their supplier, and they'll be buying things that are already portioned, already taken off the bone, already prepped, and then backpacked, ready for you guys or us. And that'll be mince, that'll be burgers, that'll be sausages, that'll be all your steaks, your top sides, your top rumps. Then you've got a few specialist butchers, butchers that are either working with farms directly, and what they do is that they'll be looking at the breeds and they'll be placing orders when the cows are still feeding, so they know that they've got this breed coming. They're going to get 3 or 4 loin and ribs, and then you can pre-order it. And these guys will be butchering these cuts in front of you. They tend to be a little bit more knowledgeable, a little bit more experienced, and if you can, they're the butchers that you want to go to. Some that I can list off the top of my head. There's the butchery, which is run by a great butcher. I think he's a Kiwi, Nathan. Big guy, he's about 7'4", and they're based down in Bermondsey. Ginger Pig is another one. Turner and George. So if you've heard of Hawksmoor Restaurant, or Meatopia, the big meat festival in London, the exec chef of Hawksmoor started Turner and George, and they're an excellent butchers. I'm currently getting my meat at the moment from a guy called Thomas Joseph Butchery, and they're in Essex, and they're absolutely fantastic. Some of the meat that they're producing at the moment is absolutely ridiculous. But just to digress back, for me, before you talk about value and what cuts, the questions you need to be asking your butchers is, where does the meat come from? What breed of animal is it? How was it reared? How old was it when it was slaughtered or harvested? How has it been hung and aged? How do you store it? And then most importantly, how do you cook it? It's really important that you'll go in, and it's very easy then just to give you X or Y. And unfortunately, even in restaurants, I've been to places and I'll say, there's a pub near us. It's a very nice pub, good food. They do a 2 for 1 on a Tuesday night steak. You can have a ribeye or a sirloin. And a couple of times I've had to send it back because it wasn't a sirloin. They put a lump of rump on there, and your average person who will buy from the supermarket or go to a restaurant, so they won't ask the question. It's cooked nice, it looks nice, plated up well, and it tastes great. But it's important that you know these things, because provenance and husbandry it's a difference between sustainable farming and having that product that you can trust, but also you do have to pay a little bit more for it. But the quality of meat is absolutely fantastic. And you know, you wouldn't go out there and you know, go to a really cheap dentist or go to a hairdresser that was really, really cheap because, you know, you want to save a few quid. This is stuff that you're eating, stuff that you're putting on your plate for your family, for your friends. And I really think that wherever possible, you should be buying the better quality stuff, which is, you know, going on to what you said, that's not always possible for everyone. You know, we'd all like to be eating fillet or ribeye or ex dairy cow or Galician or Basque and all these different wonderful Wagyu. I mean, look at the price of an A5 Wagyu sirloin steak. You're looking at £150 for a steak. So you know that's not viable for the average person. So cuts that I think you should look at. Skirt, the vet is a really good cut. Great depth of flavour there, but at the same time there are, and I'll get this off my chest. People say to me, working for butchers and knowing me, what is the best way to cook this steak? Now, I will tell you that the best way to cook a bavette is rare. But at the same time, if you don't like rare meat, if you want your steak well done, my dad will go to a restaurant, he'll order a fillet and he'll ask for it well done. And I'm sitting there like, no. But, you know, the best steak is a steak that you like, and it's a steak you like cooked the way you like it.
Yeah.
So, you know, but at the same time, there are certain cuts of meat, especially beef, where you do need to one or the other. So bavette is one of those. You have to cook it rare. It's a part of the cow which is quite fibrous, and if you cook it too long, it becomes quite chewy. The flavour's still there, so you either got to cook it rare, medium rare at the most, or cook it low and slow, and let those fibrous tissues and the intermuscular fat break down. Another great cut is the onglet or the hanger steak. This is a weird muscle because it doesn't actually. It's almost a cushion. It sort of comes from the diaphragm, so sort of the upper belly of the cow. This is probably my favourite cut. It's definitely my wife's favourite cut. Really, really good value for money. I mean, you could buy 400 grams worth of this for about £9. There is a butcher out there I saw last week on social media selling it for £18, which was ridiculous. Again, as popularity happens and this becomes more well known, people will charge more for it. Good old fashioned rump steaks are great, but I think you need to be looking at what you get. The rump, there's many muscles in the rump, and the same way as a T-bone has got part of the fillet and part of the sirloin, rump has got different muscles. Now, these muscles, they do different things at different sizes, and that sometimes causes them to cook at different ways. For instance, if a fillet will take a little bit longer than a sirloin to cook, so if you're having a T-bone, really you should take the fillet off and then cook that separate. That's what a lot of the restaurants will do, because that you don't want to have, if you've asked for a cut that's medium rare, you're going to get one part of it which is going to be medium rare, which will be the fillet, and then the sirloin will be more on the medium side of it, and then you might enjoy it a little bit less. And if you're paying, I don't know, £30-35 for a cut from a restaurant or from a butcher's even, you're going to want to know how to use it, and how to best cook it so you can enjoy it the best way that you want to.
And yet people are very aware of that when it comes to chicken, aren't they? You know, you cook let's say you're grilling a spatchcock chicken, you know that the thigh is going to cook at a different, you know, it's going to cook way quicker or way slower than the breast, depending on where you've got it on the heat. But I think when people just see, I've bought a steak, I think there's a very singular, right, it's one thing, rather than looking at it the way you just said. And I think that's key to anyone getting into cooking, or even quite far in and quite advanced in their sort of journey in cooking. I think it's something that's easily forgotten, because I went and bought a steak. That bone or that line of fat is giving you that divisive part of it to go, you need to treat that slightly differently to that side. And yeah, I think that's easily forgotten.
No, I agree. And what I would say to someone who wants to be a little bit more adventurous with what they're cooking, there's YouTube's a great place for looking at different ways that people are doing things. I mean, you know, not to blow smoke up your ass, but you've got a fantastic blog. A lot of the stuff that you're cooking, it makes you want to go out and cook. So, you know, speak to people. If you listen to this, speak to people like Phil. Look on his page and see what he's cooking. And, you know, I think the barbecue community, the meat community, the cooking community, they're quite open, and you know, even the top chefs out there, there's some really good guys out there that happily talk to you about what they're doing, how to do things. Obviously, their time is very valuable, and you know, they're doing some big shifts. But at the moment, during lockdown, when we're all sort of a little bit more generous with our time, which is why you're getting so many good videos and content on social media, YouTube. You know, just go out there and try things, because what's right for me and what's right for you, Phil, might not be right for someone else. And taste is different. I mean, I try not to eat as much chicken as I always did. I'm a bit chickened out, if I'm honest. And you know, I'm looking at different cuts. I'm very much into my Spanish beef at the moment. The meat that comes from there, it's aged a lot longer. It might be called a cider house cow, where they're ex-dairy cows, and they used to take them to the cider house and say, look, can you give us some cider? We'll give you this cow. And the meat you get from that is absolutely ridiculous. I went to a restaurant last year in Bilbao called Amaren, and I had a whole piece of Rubia Galicia ribeye, and it was bright yellow fat, which comes from complete rearing on grass. Sorry, that's another thing to talk about fat. If you see a yellow fat, it's because they're grass reared. If the fat's white, then they're grain fed. Now grass, you know, especially where the majority of our animals come from, the Yorkshire Moors, Scotland, the Highlands, grass is plentiful. That, you know, obviously we do get some inclement weather over here. It's not possible to rear them solely on grass, but silage as well. But the grain fed stuff is done because the grain is a little bit more nutritionally dense, and it makes the animals grow quicker and get a better yield. Whereas the grass-fed beef, it tends to be a little bit longer in age, and you can really taste that in the husbandry. And it's just absolutely fantastic. I mean, that real yellow buttery fat.
Yeah, and again, I think that's. Would you say that's rare at the minute because people are exposed to the more, let's be honest,
100%,
market?
100%. There is, you know, we've been in a situation, you know, if you're listening to this, I don't know, in 6 months' time, the date today, it's the 8th of June. They're just about really lightening lockdown rules. I mean, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, we were queuing outside for toilet roll. We were getting what we can, and you know, we didn't know if there was going to be real problems with meat supply, food supplies. It's a crazy time, but we've got through it. I haven't seen any real dips in food at all. I think the industry's been absolutely fantastic as a whole. But there is a lot of crap out there. I mean, historically, the French breeds of, I mean, again, we could talk about breeds of cow for ages and ages and ages, but you know, you've got Limousin, Charolais, which tends to be crossed with our Angus breeds. The Limousin and the Charolais, so they're two French breeds, and they're known for being muscular, good composition. So you know, the worst thing you're going to want to do, and I'll tell you a story about this in a second, is you need to have a little bit of continuity. When I was at Nigel Fredericks, we had one of our top sporting clients was Chelsea Football Club, and the chef at the time rang me up because we sent in some steaks to them, some ribeye steaks, and there was with ribeyes, you know, they can differ, unless you clean film them before you cut them, and they're very uniform. Uniformity is huge in numbers butchery now. But for whatever reason, one slipped through the net, and they weren't uniform. Anyway, so they're all sitting down, and one of these players, international striker, sat down with this huge bit of meat on his plate, and another player looked over and said, "Why has he got a bigger steak than me?" And there was a big hoo-ha over it.
Right.
Now, they were the same weight, same weight, but they were just different sizes.
Right.
So, you know, it's crazy how you've got to. Anyway, so I'm digressing massively there.
But if it was Drogba, he clearly deserved a bigger steak.
Well, potentially, you know, yeah, you could argue that, but you know, going back to the different breeds. So the French breeds, they're not known for anything other than having really good composition, and they are grown. That they are bred to grow quickly. So you know they're harvested early. Steaks are going through, and they're on the supermarkets before you can shake a stick at it. But some of the native breeds, things like White Park, Dexter. In Dexter cow is fantastic. They're only a metre high. Where some cows are enormous, they're only a metre high. And if you look at the T-bones, the eye of the meat, it's a lot smaller, but the flavour is incredible. Longhorn, Shorthorn, Aberdeen Angus. But the real beef I've got, excuse the pun, is that for the average person, you're not going to know what it is. You know, from marketing side, they can say, "Oh, I've got this absolutely fantastic rare breed this, rare breed that," and I've seen it in a lot of restaurants. I'm thinking to myself, you know, there's chain restaurants out there saying they're doing rare breed steaks, and then they're doing 500 covers a night. So how's it? You know, there's rare breed, and then there's, you know, there's just not that amount of product out there.
Yeah.
What will happen with the better butchers is they'll get a loin and ribbon or a whole carcass, and then they'll butcher it from there. And you might get 10, 15 steaks, and there are some butchers out there that deal with some producers that deal with certain breeds predominantly. There's I'll have to come back to you with it, but I think Lakeland or something like that. There's just a Dexter butcher who I've seen come across this week, which looked fantastic. But again, you know, ignorance is bliss a lot of the time, but at the same time, asking where it's come from, what breed it is, and that extra bit of husbandry and breeding and care will really come across in your cooking, and you'll enjoy it a lot more when you're eating. It's very easy to go out and buy a couple of steaks from Waitrose or Tesco's or Lidl's, and you'll enjoy them. But if you go and get a couple of really, really good Dexter ribeyes with buttery yellow fat, it's just a game changer. It really is.
Yeah. And do you know what people wouldn't necessarily get from my Instagram feed, for example, is that I've actually started to eat less meat in a way. I would rather eat better quality and less regularly, but I'm not necessarily going to post every time I have Weetabix and raspberries on Instagram because no one wants to see that shit. But you know, ultimately it's for me, it's about so I use, and again, it'd be a shame if I didn't give them a little mention in this, Aston's of Coven, and they are literally my village butcher. They've really pulled the village through a lot of this lockdown stuff as well. They opened, there's like a barn area at the front. They opened that, turned it into a one-stop veg shop. So I've got the majority of my shopping. I've only actually left the village 4 times in lockdown for the entire 11 weeks or whatever it's been, because it's been so easy to get everything I need from there. And, you know, they put stuff on Facebook. This week's beef is from a Dexter. This week's beef is from Angus. And, you know, I would much rather pay an extra couple of quid here and there than, you know, I mean, I remember the ones when I was really, really getting into it and we were getting to know each other very early doors. Rich there, you know, we were having a conversation and he just went out and bought the ear tag and showed me, you know, that's when it was processed. That was, you know, and just being able to have access to that kind of information if I wanted it every single week is invaluable to me. It really is. And I would rather go without a couple of days, maybe have fish here or you know, but I would much rather eat less meat and eat better quality.
Couldn't agree with you more. Couldn't agree with you more.
So with that then, I mean, where do you think the industry is kind of headed? I mean, I know we've kind of skirted around it and dipped into it a little bit, but because it seems, especially if you look on social media, there seems to be what seems to be quite a massive subset of people now moving over to, plant-based diets. I mean, I've never, and again, people sort of go, oh, you know, I bet you're well against vegan. No, not really. I think ultimately you do you. It's similar to how we were talking about liking your steak. If that's the way you want to, you know, eat, that's absolutely nothing to do with me, and I'm quite happy to let you do it. And to be honest, I've started getting more vegan cookbooks as well, because I think it's an area of cooking that is quite interesting. It's, you know, cooking in a different way than I've ever cooked before. So that's something that I'm learning at the moment. But do you think that's having a big effect on the meat industry as it stands, and where do you think that's going?
I think the country as a whole are a little bit more informed about the importance of provenance. It's a constant battle between fashion against form. You know, why are you a vegan? Are you a vegan for health reasons? Are you a vegan or a vegetarian for you know,
moral reasons,
beliefs, moral reasons, and that shouldn't come into play. But you know, there's a joke that they'll say, you know, how do you know someone's a vegan? Because they'll tell you. But you know, for me, it's about balance. I grew up not being a huge fan of vegetables. I was a firstborn, and you know, my mum would put things on my plate. If I didn't want to eat it, she'd give me something else, and that's been ingrained. But having worked with some of the top restaurants in London, and you know, been to some of the, lucky enough to have been to some of the best restaurants in the world, the things that they're doing with vegetables and different ingredients are absolutely phenomenal. And I would say, don't knock it until you tried it. But for me, balance is everything. But how it will affect the industry, I think that as we as a nation become a little bit more picky is the word, or a little bit more demanding in terms of where we get things and how they come about, then I think that it will be positive, because it will up the quality out there, because I think that less of us will be looking for bad quality, or you know, it's that constant struggle, because you know, you might sit there thinking, oh yeah, look at him, he's going out buying really expensive steaks because he must be minted. I'm not, but the problem is that, you know, bacon's a really good one. You'll buy cheap bacon and you'll cook it in a frying pan, and you'll be left there with a big load of white foam. Or you'll buy 227 gram chicken breast and you'll cook it, and it'll be about that big when you do it, because they're pumping it full of water. I think if you cut corners, you'll get found out. And what I am finding is that there is a lot more choice if you're willing to look for it. Lockdown has it's caused a lot of us to adapt, look elsewhere to the supermarket, because we've been very lucky with the weather in the terms of that, you know, standing outside of Tesco's or Sainsbury's for 25 minutes in the sunshine, you know, it's not a bad deal. But there's a lot of people out there that couldn't go to supermarkets and are looking online for different food distributors, and you know, there's been times out there when I've been looking for butchery slots and I've had to wait 2 weeks, but it has calmed down now. The one thing that I will carry on doing post lockdown is continuing to buy better meat, better quality stuff, whether it's fruit, veg. We're using a milkman now. You know, supermarket we'd get our milk and that'd be it. Eggs from the supermarket, but we get it from the milkman now. Part of me wants to continue supporting those people that helped us when we couldn't get things so freely. But I don't know, it's a difficult one. I just think that the industry will always be there. Veganism, vegetarianism has always been there, but now it's a lot more prominent. We are fed a lot of crap. You'll read the Daily Mail on a Monday, it'll say, you know, bacon and sausages linked to more deaths, and then on a Friday it will say bacon and sausages are new superfoods.
Yeah.
You know, it's with anything. You know, if you eat a lot of anything or if you drink a lot of anything, it's not always good for you. I think balance is really, really key. And like you alluded to, maybe eating less meat it will be good. They do say it definitely helps the environment. I think we're all more environmentally conscious these days. But for me, it's not so much about quantity; it's more about quality. And ask those questions, like I mentioned earlier, and find out and care where your stuff comes from.
Yeah.
Because you know it should mean a lot to you. What happens is what will kill you, what will kill all of us generally is what we put in our mouth, whether it's drink, smoke, food. That will be, you know, the end of most of us. So you've got to give yourself a fighting chance, and you know, just wherever you possibly can, eat good quality food and learn to cook more as well.
Yeah, that's key. And at the beginning of this is going to be sort of a bit of a shameless plug here. At the beginning of lockdown, I wrote an isolation cookbook to help people with that. I know it wasn't necessarily barbecue focused. Some of it's transferable, but it was more about helping people that haven't got a Scooby-Doo and they were going to live on crispy pancakes and chips for 10 weeks, which I've got to be honest, based on my childhood, didn't sound too bad. But you know, sorry, Mum. But yeah, I think, you know, it's really important to be aware of that. And I think even if, you know, someone is vegan now and then comes out the other end of it and goes, you know, maybe that didn't work for me. I actually was a vegetarian for a bit. It didn't agree with me. I didn't feel myself, you know, I felt like I was lacking something. So when I went back, it made me appreciate the quality of what I was having that a little bit more. And I think balance is key, because I think, you know, if it swung completely the other way, mass farming of soy and things is just as bad for the environment as, you know, doing it with and shipping meat everywhere. You know, I think there's always going to be a tipping scale on that. And like you say, I think the balance is key. So funnily enough, I was listening to a podcast this week actually, and it was a Need for Feed pod, which I've been sharing quite a lot on Instagram. It's a relatively new podcast, but it's really good. And they had Tom Wood on, and he said because they were talking about going out and harvesting your own meat, hunting, and he said, I'm probably the closest thing you're going to get to a vegan actually. And it was a really interesting point, because what he was saying was, yeah, I eat meat, but I don't eat shit meat. You know, I go out and get the purest kind of meat you can. You know, going out and harvesting my own venison is way closer to being a vegan than going into Tesco and going in and getting, you know, plastic wrapped chicken and all this kind of stuff where you don't know where it's from. It's pumped full of XYZ. And I thought that was a really interesting point. And, you know, that kind of thing's been championed by Joe Rogan and people like that as well. And I think, like him or love him, he's got a big platform to be able to talk about that, and it will change minds. So I think that's I think that's really important. So rounding it, so we've got one sort of big hot topic before I let you go, and then a couple of little bits. The biggest one though, I think, is for especially like people like me very early on. I think the biggest challenge was going into a butcher and trying to find the cuts that we can see online, you know, the fashionable stuff. And we see these exotically named pieces of meat and we go, oh, I want that. And then you go and see, you know, Aston's, for example. If I went down there and asked for a picanha, I'm not necessarily sure they would respond as well as if I said, can I have a bit of the top rump? They would know what I'm on about, obviously, because they're very, very good at what they do. But I think there's a couple out there, picanha, tri-tip, Jacob's ladder, there's stuff out there and it's a bit of a minefield. So is there any terminology that you'd recommend people use to sort of solve that, especially in the case of, we spoke before we started recording properly about New York strips, didn't we? Then that would be a really good place to start, those kind of things, you know. Yeah, is there any sort of advice you'd give people looking for those sort of fashionable cuts?
Yeah, I mean, again, don't cook things that you... No, that's the wrong thing to say. Apologies. Take that back. Do cook things you're not used to cooking, but have an understanding of what you want to achieve. Don't cook a picanha steak because you've you think it's a cool steak to use. If you like a rump steak or if you like a sirloin steak, whatever you like, then cook that. Do try other bits and pieces by all means, but don't do it just because you think it's fashionable. Now, America is, a big one. I'm not bashing America at all. It's one of my favourite countries in the world, and I've got a lot of friends and family out there. But they do have a way of putting their own Americanism on everything. Now, there's a lot of different cuts out there that you'll hear about. Boston butt is another one. Now, Boston butt, which will be used for pulled pork, is the top of the pork shoulder. They'll have the Boston butt, and then it will go into the lower part of the four-quarter leg, which will be the picnic ham. But if you go into your butcher and say, "Can I have a Boston butt?" He's probably not, he's working at Smithfield Market, or he's working 5 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon cutting meat. He might not be sitting there watching Netflix and Amazon Prime and coming up with all these different wonderful names of things. I mean, New York strip steak, it's a sirloin steak. It's cut from the strip loin, but what's New York got to do with it? I mean, you could delve into it, and I think it's probably Peter Luger's or one of the famous New York Manhattan steak restaurants are probably the first person to start doing that cut, and that's where it comes from. I mean, picanha is the rump cap. It sits on top of the rump. Now, I said earlier that the rump is probably 4 or 5 different muscles. And the rump cap. Now, the reason picanha works so well is because it's a single muscle. So when you've got a single muscle cut, and even a ribeye steak isn't a single muscle. With the ribeye, you've got the actual eye, and you've got the fat, but then you've got a piece of meat that runs around the top, which is like a cap, the rib cap, which is called decal. Now that cut, if you next time you have a ribeye steak, you'll taste the ribeye, and you'll cut into that, and then you'll cut into the decal. And it's a lot more tender. It's just a different muscle. So picanha, it's the Brazilian name for the rump cap. And wherever it's a predominant cut in South America, in Argentina, that they use a lot of different cuts to us because it lends better to their cooking, and then they'll evidently just have different names and different ways of calling things. But if you, we spoke earlier on about the burger competition. And I mentioned EBLEX, which is English Beef and Lamb Executive. Now they've changed their name now. It's AHDB, which is the Agricultural and Horticultural Development Board. Yeah, cool, blimey. Try saying that after a few pints, eh? They've actually got some really, really good stuff on their website. They've got Simply Beef and Lamb, and they've got the cuts, all the different cuts that you want. And I believe they've got an app as well. And do your butcher a favour. If you walk in and you say, oh, I want a tri-tip, and he says, oh, okay, what's a tri-tip? And you say, I don't know. Well, how are you going to cook it? Well, I saw old Brew Shack Barbecue on Instagram. He cooked up a tri-tip. I thought I'd have a bash at that, but yeah, can you give me one, please? You need to be able to go in and say, right, I want this cut. It's a muscle from the bottom sirloin. I've got a picture of it for you. Do you butcher a favour? If you go into any artisan and start asking for a product, this is a guy that or a firm that have been running for maybe 30 years, family-run business. If you go in there and ask him for a cut that he hasn't got a clue on, he's going to feel like a bit of a wally.
Yeah.
You're not doing him a favour. You're asking him a cut that you've heard on an American barbecue show that they're not selling day in, day out. And there's a reason they might not be selling it day in, day out. We don't do ourselves any favours by calling things different things, and Americans giving everything a different name. I'm trying to think of some other ones. That, you've got short ribs and you've got Jacob's ladders. Brisket is one that we had a conversation with. Now, the way we cook brisket over here is it's a cheaper Sunday roast. Now, Sunday roast is when traditionally a lot of people would only have meat once a week, and that's when it would be on a Sunday, and it would be a leg of lamb, a top side of beef, a top rump. But some people couldn't afford that, and that's when they go for those not lesser, subprime or cheaper cuts. And that's how they'll be using brisket. But for barbecue enthusiasts, will be out there. You know, if you go in and say, "Can I have a brisket from a butcher's?" You're going to get a 2.5 kilo, a kilo, or maybe even a 3 kilo piece, completely removed any fat, rolled up, ready, oven ready. Oven ready is a term you'll hear a lot in butchery. Oven ready means you just put it in the oven. Whereas, you know, when you want a brisket, you know, Phil, if you want a brisket, you want a really nice, you know, 12 kilo brisket, already there, not cut, so you can trim it up. You're not going to get that from the butchers because they're not used to selling whole primals. You know, they're going to come in and they're going to get the flat, and they're going to cut that, and they're going to roll it, they're going to butterfly it out, and it's all about yield. So have a little bit of do your homework. You know, there is enough people out there. You know, I'm happy for anyone to drop me a line and ask me a question if you want to know about different cuts. I don't know everyone 100%, you know, but at the same time, I can point you in the direction of people that will know it. But just don't be that guy to roll into your butcher and say, "Yeah, can I have this, please? Can I have that?" Go in and give them a bit of warning. Say, "Look, I've got a barbecue on Saturday. I want to do 3 or 4 dishes. This is what I'm planning to do. Do you think this will work? Could you offer me a different alternative?" Just be humble with it, you know, because you wouldn't go into work and say, "Right, talk to your assistant. Can you book me a restaurant at that place I like, please?" And they'd be like, "What place do you like?" "You know, the place I like. Yeah, the place that does the thing." That's what you're doing when you're going to butchers and you're speaking to a 65-year-old man who's just cut the way he's always done all his life, and you're asking for an interesting piece of meat that you know has been given a 2012 or 2020 or 1999 marketing name. He's not going to know what it is. He might know what it is, but at the same time, just be humble enough to go in there with a little bit of homework and say, "Look, I want to try a tip. I'm going to cook it on the barbecue. Going to cook it, you know, reverse sear, all this terminology." But go in and say, "Look, it's from the bottom sirloin. This is what it looks like. This is what the muscle is. Could you get this for me, please?"
Yeah.
And having that sort of humility, and just, you know, your butcher can be your best friend. You really can be. And go in and utilize their expertise, and just like I said, just be a bit humble. But just to go back to the start, have a look at the websites, Wikipedia, English Beef and Lamb Executive, AHDB, Simply Beef and Lamb. You got the pictures in there, and then you can start visualizing how you're going to cook it and how you're going to cut it. Because what will happen is, I mean, I've seen it on lots of forums where they'll go to their local butcher and say, I want a Boston butt, please. And they'll say, "Well, what's that?" You know, it's a pork shoulder. And they'll come in and they'll go back in and they've ordered this pork shoulder ready for big barbecue, and it's not what they want. But you've gone in and asked for something that he doesn't really know what it is.
Yeah.
Chances are you don't really know what it is. So you need to sort of bridge that gap, work with your butcher, you know, because otherwise it's just going to bite you on the arse.
It's almost like going in and asking for it in French.
100%. And there's the French. There's the French terms, you know. There's
Côte de Boeuf, all that.
Côte de Boeuf, yeah. And we should always talk about the Côte de Boeuf because people, there's a big fascination now for tomahawk steaks. Okay, so
yeah,
which is great, you know. They're a good little bit of theatre.
I have my own opinion on that, and it was largely driven. Sorry to interrupt. It's largely driven by my butcher actually, because when I first got into it, I was like, "Look, I want to."
We're going to say the same thing here. We're going to say exactly.
You pay for the weight of the bone.
Pay for the weight of the bone.
They aren't even prepared, literally, because they are a good set of guys. They were like, "Look, I don't even feel comfortable charging you for it because I don't want to charge you for the bone."
No.
You know, and you can't say fairer than that.
Exactly. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I'm contradicting myself. If you got your heart set on a tomahawk, then get the tomahawk. But just realise that it's exactly the same in terms of cooking and flavour as a Côte de Boeuf. If you take the bone out as well, then you've got a ribeye steak. It's exactly the same. So, you know, there are a lot of different terminologies out there, and picanha is a great cut, and again, it's a really good value cut. You've got to it's easier if you've got it portioned up into steaks because you've got to cook it. So when you cut, you got to cut it against the grain. It's more tender that way. If it's portioned up already, then it will already be cut that way. But yeah, it looks like I don't know, like a little bit of a roof. Nice bit of fat across the top, portioned into steaks. It's got that real meatier flavour than a ribeye, as a rump. A little bit of chew, but still really tender as well. People go and tend to go for things like fillet, ribeye, sirloin. For me, fillet and sirloin are great cuts. You get a beef Wellington, it's a real treat, but the depth of flavour's not there for me. You'll hear a term, fat is flavour, which you'll probably see in a lot of Tinder profiles, but that's by the by. But it's true. The best part of the ribeye is the fat. Yeah. And having that little bit of fat, it really adds to the flavour. But rump, it's a muscle that's doing a lot. Without going into too much details, the muscles are contracting a lot because what cows eat, sleep, and so any muscle that's working tends to be a little bit tougher and needs a little bit more cooking. The fillet just sits there next to the sirloin, doing nothing. So that's why it's so tender. But at the same time, it hasn't built up any protein in as much protein in it, so the flavours are not there.
Yeah,
but again, if you like it, you like it. Go for it.
Yeah, again, some people will pick that texture over. I mean, I'm almost forever debating that, and it's something you shouldn't really debate. But I just don't rate fillet as a cut. I've never really seen, especially when you pay more for it. And usually it comes with the sauce, or and it's more about the stuff that comes with it and the textural experience, which is fine. But for me, I would always pick a ribeye. Ribeye is my favourite cut.
Is there any cuts of beef you haven't tried?
Probably. Do you know what? I haven't actually cooked a picanha myself yet. So that's something I'd like to do. Again, the usual suspects have all been and gone, but I think my overall favourite is probably going to shock a few people, and that's oxtail. I know it's not a steak, but I think I made at the beginning of lockdown, I made some oxtail pierogi, and I can honestly say it's one of the best things I cooked this whole lockdown. They were incredible.
And how much did it cost you for the oxtail?
A couple of quid.
But I mean, one caveat is with oxtail, it's almost like a flour in terms of the bone and the muscle in it. So it is a bit of a bastard to if you ask for it off the bone, it's almost impossible. Butchers don't really do it, so you'll get it cut into sections. So anything in terms of butchery, in terms of cost, anything where the butcher has to pick up his knife adds value and it adds cost. So it adds cost, not value. So the cheapest cut steak will be ones that you get the whole thing on the bone as it comes into the butchers. They just say, right, okay, goes in, comes out. Haven't had to lift their knives up. When you get down to things like ribeye steaks, you take it off the bone. Fillet, you have to take it off the bone. Sirloin, brisket. I mean, your average topside, you'll buy a topside from the supermarket and you'll see this big bit of fat on it. Now, topside hasn't got any fat on it. They tie that fat on to flavour the beef during the cook. Okay. It's something. It's the name of it. If you cut the string next time you get topside, you can pull that fat off. It just sits on there. They put it on themselves. So anytime they're picking the knife up, it does add cost to what you're doing.
That makes sense. And with that oxtail, what I tend to do, and that's not really a barbecue cook for me, I'll leave it in the slow cooker overnight, and then I've got filling for pierogi or pasta or whatnot. So, I think so. We've sort of put the world to rights there in terms of butchery, and I think that's been a really insightful conversation. But what I really want to know is about the pig's head.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because to be fair, I think that is going to be the thumbnail for this conversation. So I think we should probably talk about it.
Yeah. So we spoke earlier about the Battle of the Burgers. So I actually entered 2 other burger competitions as well. One was before the Battle of the Burgers and one was after. It was, I think, a year into my career at the Butchers. And like I said, I'm a really big burger fan. ETM Group, I mean, it's been a while since I've been into their pubs, but hopefully they are still around. I'm sure they are. They used to have a pub in the Docklands called The Gun. And they put on this event called the Slider Decider. And you had to come up with a concept for a burger. For those of you who don't know, a slider, I hate myself saying this, to 9 out of 10 people, a slider is a mini burger. A proper slider is a burger cooked on a bed of onions. It's steamed rather than grilled, but that's another episode. So we had to cook 8 burgers and then present it to 3 or 4 judges. And I entered with this Jaeger Bomb burger, got through to the finals. I was the only non-chef in the finals, and I was up against Tim Anderson, who won MasterChef, Dan Doherty had the show on the BBC, Tom Senny, who worked at Duck and Waffle, works at a pub now called The Loyal in East London. Real top celebrity chefs, and I was the only non-chef in there. And I did really, really well. I think I come 14 out of 20, which is great. As soon as I beat 6 people who do it for a living, which is great. But I learned a lot, and then the next year we went back, and I had to change a burger up, and I did the truffle burger. Now this truffle burger was again slider burgers. It was 2 patties, and I grated some truffle into butter and melted that in between the buns. Served it with some rocket, truffle aioli, and then some shaved truffle on the top. As a presentation, I think you might stick this picture up. Maurice Stevenson, I spoke to about before, he said, obviously pigs are famous for hunting for truffles. Let's serve it on a pig's head. And we got this whole pig's head, and we dressed it. And it looked like it was cooked. It wasn't cooked. We painted it with black treacle, so it had that brown hue. And then we piped coloured lard on there as well, which is a traditional way of dressing things at Butcher's Hall. Butcher's Hall is the honourable company of butchers in London. It's all the top butchers I remember there. But yeah, so I was first up. I was in the first heat, and it was live fire cooking as well. I remember it being really, really hot. The heat was too high for the burgers, but I had to change how I did things. But really pleased with how I cooked. And then I had these. So I had to cook 4 burgers for the judges, and then 4 went out to the crowd. So up I rocked with this whole pig's head, these 4 burgers on a platter. And other people were just putting them on plates. But I'd been there the year before, and I know they liked a little bit of theatre. So that's what I did. I turned up, and the judges were like, "Oh, you could have made a bit of an effort." Anyway, they loved the burger. Stefan Chomka was one of the judges. He's the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Magazine. I got some really, really good feedback. I ended up coming 3rd, which was outstanding for me. And I beat some real big people that day. Evidently, it was my birthday, and I had a few beers, a few more. Family friends were there, and it's a long old time. You think there was I think it's 25 of us in that one, 5 heats of 5, and we had 15 minutes to cook each burger each time, and with a little bit of delay in between while doing the judging. It was a long old evening, and there were some girls who really enjoyed the burger, and they said, "No, what are you going to do with a pig's head?" And I said, "I was throwing the bin." They said, "No, chuck it in the Thames." So the Gun is in Docklands, and it's right next to the Thames. There's probably about a 6-foot path in between it, and so I pulled the. We had to screw it down. We drilled it down and pulled this pig, this pork flying everywhere. So I held it above my head.
Raw.
Yeah, raw pork as well. Yeah, and yeah, so I launched it into the Thames, and there it went, just bobbing up and down. I was saying to you earlier, I can imagine those people having their pleasure boat trips down the Thames. And if you're not from London, you can go up and down, and these party buses, things on the Thames. And someone would have looked over and saw this, this pig's head just floating down the Thames. Probably wasn't a good thing to do, but yeah, no, it was a good fun. And unfortunately, that was my so this was in between. This is after I'd met you, so that was my last cooking competition. But I'd like to do it again. It was good fun. mean, if we had a chance to do Battle of the Burgers again now, I think we'd be in a good chance of winning it. But they're a lot more popular now. The better burger, people aren't going to the Wimpy and McDonald's anymore. They're going to Byron, Meat Liquor, and the chain restaurants, but they are serving a better burger.
I think the competition would be a lot higher now.
Oh, 100%. There's people out there cooking absolutely mental, really, really good burgers.
I'd be surprised if we didn't see some of the people we both follow on Instagram at that.
Absolutely, yeah. The circle we move in now, there's some really good home chefs out there, and as the availability of good cooking equipment is becoming more apparent, and you can recreate these things via YouTube instructions, Instagram. You can recreate anything now.
Yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely right. I'd expect to win more than a cookbook next time, is all I'm saying.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, last couple from me then. So I know that you've recently bought a new bit of kit as well, haven't you? Barbecue wise.
Yeah, we've so a little bit of boring story. Where we live, we had some silence in our house, and it meant that we had 2 years of real problems at our flat, and we couldn't do anything here. I couldn't even decorate. At one point, we had a scaffold keeping the roof up, and we said that we wouldn't do anything, spend any money on the house until this was all fixed. And it was fixed at Christmas, and then the wife and I said, look, now's the time to start getting really into barbecue. So the first thing I got for my birthday in May, she bought me a little Hibachi Conroe grill from Chef's Locker. And if you don't know what they are a little ceramic barbecues for yakitori. They get very, very hot. Really, really good bit of kit. And if you go onto my Instagram page, you'll see a lot of cooking on there. That was the first piece. And then I had, there's a company called Country, let me get this up because I've got a brain like a sieve today. Nice. Country Fire Kitchen. They're based down in Dorset, I believe. A guy called Tom Bray. He makes these custom barbecue solutions. If you go to Meatopia, 9 out of 10 people are cooking on them. And he's created a home setup called the Portico Home. And it's a fantastic steel barbecue, fire bricks, different levels, and there's loads of attachments on it. You can hang chicken from the top in specially made chicken baskets. I can't do it justice over talking about it. I can't articulate how clever it is, but it's a really, really good bit of kit.
Yeah.
I bought, couldn't help myself. I bought an Aldi ceramic Joe. It was 90 quid, 80 quid a couple of weeks ago. Haven't really cooked much on that. I think the only thing I've really cooked on it was I did a whole chicken last week using your own spice rub, your Cajun spice rub, which you very kindly sent me, which is fantastic. The flavour we got off that was it was unbelievable. And I've also
they're so good.
Sorry?
They're so good. Those little really Kamados, they're brilliant.
And they're really handy. And I think when you've got the full setup, so the full setup, I've mentioned the Hibachi, I've mentioned the little Joe, and I've mentioned the Portico. I've also got a ProQ smoker. I've also got a Uni pizza oven as well. And combined with that, there's nothing you can't really cook. And whilst I'm a big advocate of restaurants, and I know we eat out once or twice a week when we can, I believe the new normal, we're going to see a lot of our favourite restaurants that are not going to come out of this, unfortunately, and which is, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I think more people will be entertaining at home until we are back to any semblance of normality. I mean, talking today about 22nd of June for the pubs to open again, pub gardens with social distancing. Massive fingers crossed. There are some really, really good places out there that are home. There's a pub in Mayfair called the Guinea Grill. They've got the most incredible landlord, a guy called O'Sheen Rogers. He is phenomenal, really, really good guy. He's at McMoop on Instagram and Twitter. Follow him; he's a really, really good guy. And I really want to get back into the pubs and restaurants and do that. But until I can, I'm just going to make the most of it at home and cook good products and follow people like you. Get lots of inspiration.
Thank you.
It's good.
Yeah, wicked. It sounds like you've got all bases covered now. I think, especially with the uni as well, you can pretty much, you've got all the bases covered. Every sort of takeaway itch you can scratch, can't you, really, at home now?
Well, I'll tell you what, the wife bought a KitchenAid ice cream maker. And she's been making some ice cream last couple of weeks, and they've been so good. So good. I will not buy a tub of Haagen-Dazs ever again.
No, fair play. I've had the same sort of epiphany with the sausage making attachment for my Kenwood. Honestly, don't get me wrong, some of the ones I've made have been a bit ropey, but the process, I'm really enjoying it and just getting into that. I will still buy sausage because luckily Sam at Aston's has won awards for his sausage, so I know that I've got that to fall back on if mine are shite. But so far, we've done Bourvers, we've done I know I've done a tomato and garlic one. I've done garlic and herb, and I'm going to give them a go again this week. But yeah,
one bit of advice I'd say to people, if you're going on my Instagram, so my Instagram is a lot of my cooking, but it's also a lot of restaurants and travel as well. If you go onto Phil's Instagram, some of the best food you're going to see. But foodie Instagram, it is a little bit of a minefield, but a little bit of an inside secret. Instagram is like relationships. You only post the good stuff. You don't post the crap. And for every great dish you see, there's a lot of shit that goes in the bin. Yep. There's a lot of disasters. And don't think we're sitting here eating fillet steak and ribeyes every day. We'll have a fish finger sandwich. There are days when we'll have fuck all on toast. It's not all restaurant stuff. So don't think that you have to have all this equipment and you don't have to do,
I agree.
Just enjoy it. Just go out there, buy the stuff you want to eat and enjoy it.
Yeah, 100%. I ate Nutella with a spoon the other day. I'm not ashamed.
Nothing wrong with that.
Not ashamed. So last question before we let you go, to carry on doing probably not a lot because it's still locked down. The last one would be, what would you say is your favourite thing to cook at the moment, and what are you drinking with it?
So a little bit of a caveat. I've lost 4 stone since Christmas.
You look amazing, by the way.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. I was nearly 21 stone, and I'm just under 17 now. So the booze has been a little bit less than would usually do, but I do allow myself a beer, especially when it's nice weather-wise. But cooking-wise, blimey. I've really, really, really enjoyed, I know it's a little bit of a contradiction, but I said earlier that I'm a bit chickened out, but I've been really using your Cajun spice rub. And again, chicken, it lends itself really, really well. And I've used that probably on 5 or 6 dishes. I've done chicken wings, which were fantastic. I've done a whole chicken. I've done a chicken pie. The Cajun seasoning over chips is really, really good. I made my own crisps and used it on there as well. So I suppose what I like cooking at the moment is new stuff. And I've been really coming out of my comfort zone. I've been making bread, which I've never done before, making my own pizza dough, and any opportunity I've had to pick up the knives again and break things down, meat-wise, has been really enjoyable. We've all had a little bit more time. And I've been utilising that as much as I can to vary what I've been eating. But we've had some, again, it's 8th of June and it's raining today, but we've had some phenomenal weather. May was incredible weather-wise, and I've barbecuing 3 or 4, 5 times a week. I know you have been as well. Drink-wise, I really enjoy Estrella. So I'm a big fan of Spain. Spend a lot of time in Barcelona and Bilbao. One of my best friends.
Sorry, are we talking Estrella Galicia or Estrella Damm?
Estrella Damm.
Just trying to work out whether you're paying my bills.
Yeah, no, Estrella Galicia. If I can get it, then I will drink it because I think it is absolutely amazing. One thing that I saw when we were in Barcelona before is I did an Australia shandy on tap in the pubs, which the Spanish food scene, if you haven't been there before, like Barcelona, a lot of tapas, it's a lot of social eating. Bilbao's exactly the same. And you'll go into these restaurants or tapas or pinchos bars and you'll have a little snack and a drink. And it can be quite boozy. And if you're starting earlier on, some people have a coffee, but it's nice to have a shandy, and it was incredible. I didn't even know they made it. It was
that's Estrella Limon, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that one. Yeah, because again, I don't really go into it too much on socials and stuff to keep it a bit separate. But for everyone else's benefit more than yours, I actually sell that stuff for a living because I work for Marston's. So yeah, we do get insight into. We don't sell it over here because there's not really a market for radlers and things like that. But yeah, it's something that's come over, and you've seen the odd sample flying around. You think that is quite interesting. It's interesting. They do like an alcohol-free one called Freedom, which is really nice as well.
Oh,
that
wow.
has come over here now as well. So yeah,
I'll look out for that. It might be perfect for me.
Yeah, but the biggest misconception is that Estrella Galicia and Estrella Damm are the same brewery. They're not.
No.
You know, Estrella Galicia, Estrella just means star, doesn't it? And Galicia is looked after by Green King, and Damm's looked after by us. So there couldn't be any more opposing sides of the industry, really. So yeah, no, thank you. I've really enjoyed that today. We'll have to do another couple of episodes, to be fair, based on some of the subjects that have popped up. Specifically, I'm looking to do a burger one. Maybe I'll go full B. Bring someone in that likes the epic burgers, and we'll have a bit of a debate about what makes the best burger.
Definitely.
That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, thank you for that today, mate. And
thanks for having me, mate.
No problem. The only other thing I think is worth mentioning before we go as well is that if you're looking for some hard copy literature to talk about some of the stuff or learn about some of the stuff we've talked about in terms of cuts of meat, ethical farming practices, things like that, I found a really good book recently called The Ethical Meat Handbook on Amazon. It's fantastic. It is American, but even when it uses terms like tri-tip, it shows you exactly where it comes from on the animal. So just taking that into a butcher might be able to help. But we'll put links to everything we've spoken about below the video, and obviously get at us directly on social media if you have any questions. But again, Craig, thank you very much. And,
thank you.
Yeah, until next time, we'll do it again.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, bud.